Hello, everybody. I am Ashton Kiefer, welcoming our first guest, Gabe Garcia, a former Rye High School graduate. And we are talking about wrestling in the 2020s and beforehand. But we're trying to fix the 2020s. Hello, welcome our guest, Boy11, on YouTube. Okay, so question number 3. A huge problem a majority of people have is the advertising apocalypse, which is how they have, if we look at WWE, for example, they have the ring mats looking like UFC with um, sponsorships like circling the ring, Prime Stand outside the ring, Slim Jim on the tables, Fireball on the ladders,
Mm-hmm.
and even in the video
Yeah.
game, where a lot of YouTubers have commented that they're practically being forced to be sponsored by Prime every video they make because Prime's always in the middle of the ring and outside the ring. Do you think
Yeah.
that that's a problem? Do you think there's a way to fix it that could satisfy both the companies and the people? The people wanting it to be less advertised to, and the companies wanting to make more profit.
I th- to me, I that's a huge problem for me. Definitely, I think that it goes back into the first question where it's like it seems like the company is more focused on making money than giving good matches to their fans. And I think that if they realized that all they have to do is give their fans good matches and good storylines and good rivalries and stuff like that, and people will come and they'll make money. So I think that they're so caught up in all the different brands that are sponsoring them that they're not really caring about that anymore. And it's obvious, WWE and AEW and TNA and all those guys. At least WWE, it's a super company. I mean, there are people that are involved way higher up than just pro wrestling. So to me, it seems like they shouldn't be stressing about their sponsorships. They should be stressing about the actual content they're giving to people.
So what you're saying is that if they gave us good storylines and matches, they wouldn't need all the advertising because they'd make enough money by ticket sales and merchandise.
Yeah, yeah. If they just, to me, if they just forgot, well, they don't have to forget completely. I mean, because you probably still do need your sponsorships. I can understand that, but if they just focus more to, if they focus more, it just doesn't feel like there's fan treatment like there was, and the prices. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's an arm and a leg to get not good seats to just a Raw show or something like that. That's what I think.
Question number 3. A huge problem a majority of people have is the advertising apocalypse that has spread to the ring mat, the aprons, the barricade, tables, and ladders. Do you think this is a big problem? Uh, and do you think there's a way to fix it? And do you think there's a limit of how many ads wrestling shows could have?
Yeah, so I would say this is specifically a problem with WWE where it's kind of gotten out of control because you kind of mentioned like how there's advertisements on weapons now, and it kind of seems like I mean obviously I can't prove this because I don't know like the contracts and stipulations, but they have to for certain matches they have to use these weapons. Like, oh, here comes the Slim Jim ladder or the Fireball table or whatever they are, you know. I think they're kind of forcing them in. And it's kind of distracting to see like the LED barricades have like banners all over them here. And the ring mat, the ring mat, I kind of go back and forth with because like if we're going to like something like UFC, which I'm not a big MMA guy, but like I don't think anyone's had a problem with advertisements on those mats. I don't think I've really seen complaints. I'm not really in tune with like MMA communities and stuff like that. I think with WWE, it started fine where it was just like the Prime, but now we're kind of getting too many on there. Like the whole like what's the saying, like the ring is sacred. I mean I don't know because like if you go to like WCW, like the Halloween Havoc Slim Jim, I love that stuff, but because it never really felt forced, you know, it's not like they have to mention it every 5 seconds and like also you think of like a historical perspective, like would they have to blur these on future releases of stuff like video games, like highlight clips, video packages? Like, I'm trying to think long term here. I mean, I don't know. It just feels like kind of forced, you know. As before back in the day, there would just be like a 5 second blurb, like in between entrances, like, you know, this show is brought to you by Pepsi or Skittles or whatever it is. But now it's like everywhere you look is an advertisement, and like, like just all around the barricade, and they got to constantly mention like what was it, like dude wipes and like I don't even know the other ones. Like I think it's honestly it's a little bit out of control at this point.
Another problem with like advertisements people have are that in the newest game WWE 2K25 is that some wrestling YouTubers like yourself have said that they feel like they're sponsoring Prime every time they make a video about it because they always go to the Prime station, like the CPU, and then there's Prime on the mats. Do you think that's a problem?
Um, I mean, I feel like it kind of started with Prime, right? And then it kind of because at first in the middle it was just the Prime logo and the hydration station over there, and then they kind of added more. Uh, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't really see too much of a problem with it because the games are more of a reflection of what's on TV. So I mean, honestly, I think it's fine. I mean, I just think it's kind of sometimes getting kind of forced here. Like you got dancing mascots. Like I was at WrestleMania, it's like a dancing cinnamon toast crunch. Like, I'm just trying to watch the show, you know. Like, yeah. I mean, if we're talking about the game specifically, is like they're mostly like a reflection of what's going on TV. So I don't really see a problem with that, you know. But
Well, do you have any last minute thoughts on the advertising?
yeah, I mean, one thing I would like to add is like someone like me can complain all they want, but at the end of the day, it's like a business. So like nothing I say or anyone else says probably is gonna have any effect on this because like I'm sure, like obviously with WWE specifically selling to that parent company TKO, like we've seen ticket prices increase. Like it's a business. It's all about money. So I'm sure the way they do advertising now compared to back in the day, they see exponentially more numbers with the sponsors and advertisements and stuff like that. So unless someone higher up kind of puts an end to it by saying, "Hey, this is kind of getting out of control," I don't see this changing, honestly. And I mean, at the end of the day, of all the complaints to have, I guess it's you're still getting wrestling too. It's just kind of like you growing every now and again. Like here comes the Slim Jim ladder that we have to use for this match, you know, and stuff like that.
So, question number 4. A lot of people think that finding wrestling for an affordable average family, like a standard middle class family in the United States as well as other countries, is a huge problem. Some people in other countries, there's this wrestling show called NWA Power that got put onto Roku recently this year. They can't get Roku because they're in a different country. And even if they get like a VPN, at least what I've seen online is they still can't watch NWA Power, is what it's called. And they think that's a big problem there. And then another point that people are making is that like for companies like WWE and AEW, them being on like Max, Netflix, Peacock, ESPN, and cable, like all over the place, is not good for like the main target demographic, which is kids in normal families, normal middle class families, because they'd have to buy 15 subscriptions to be able to watch their favorite show. Do you think there's a way that they could fix that? Do you think that's a big problem?
I think that's another huge problem, definitely, especially considering the fact that you know average people there's although they're fans obviously, but they can't just focus on that stuff. They have bills to pay and families to feed and everything like that. And the fact that particularly WWE keeps switching where you could watch their pay-per-views and keeps switching where they're streaming their stuff. I think it would be better if they just had one streaming service you had to go to where you could watch everything from old to new, keep up with everything. You don't have to have anything else but that subscription. I think that would be easier on the families and just all the fans overall. Just because it's too difficult to, okay, now I gotta be subscribed to Netflix, Peacock, and ESPN Plus just to keep up. When before it was like Peacock and Netflix and that's it. And even then, that's still ridiculous. I mean, Netflix is pricey, and so is Peacock. So I think that if they just had one cheaper, reliable streaming service to stream everything on, then it would be beneficial for them, definitely.
Do you think I'm gonna bring up 2 points. One, the companies say that going on to stuff like Netflix, Peacock, and ESPN are getting more fans, like more fans to the product. Do you think that's true, or do you think that's still ruining it? What do you think on that regards of how wrestling companies like WWE and stuff say they're going on Netflix, Peacock, ESPN are letting more people be able to see WWE for maybe the first time? Or
I think I could see that point that the more stuff you put it on, the more people it brings. Um, but something it almost makes it like I don't know. I think having it on one thing makes it more important to for people to get that one thing, and I think money wise that would bring more people just to get that one thing. It would help out the streaming service and the company because then instead of a bunch of people going to a bunch of different places, they could have everyone all in one place. And I think that would make people tune in more, or at least try to tune in more, because it just seems more important.
so the stuff that you're saying is one place is way better than being on multiple different places. Do you think something like how they had in the past the WWE Network was a good idea for them to do, or do you think something like that they should do now, or should they try to figure out some way to do that?
I mean, I think it could be something even simpler than that. I think that they could even just put it on some sort of like streaming site like Twitch or YouTube even, and just make it like pay-per-views. It's like you just have to pay for that one show, and then you can keep up. And each thing is like varied by price, or even something like if you for if you pay for like for example if you pay for a premium thing for Raw, and it's just a channel strictly for Raw, and you just pay once a month to keep up with that, then I guess that's still kind of the same as a streaming service, but at least it's all in one spot. And maybe like on the Raw channel, if you don't pay for it, there's still every now and then clips of what happened. So if you're not able to, then you can at least see like little snippets. of what's happening.
So what you're saying is that instead of like a WWE network, they should go back even further to when they had like WWE 24/7 on demand, where it was like a specific channel where you could buy specific things for as much time as possible. But if not, they still get some free stuff on there as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, Real quick before we go into the next question, do you have any comments on like NWA Power and how other countries can't really watch it because it's specifically on the Roku channel that people can't get in other countries even if they use a VPN to be in the United States?
I think that for they should. I wish it was on something that's accessible to them in those different countries. I feel like they should maybe look for something that's more easily accessible for those people in those different countries. Because I mean, obviously, like it's more than just the U.S. There's more fans than just people in the U.S. And I think it's important to include them. And I don't think that it's fair to have this one thing on this one service that they can't get. I think that they should make sure that it's easily accessible for everybody wherever they put it on.
Well, let's go on to question number 4. A lot of people think that finding wrestling for an affordable average family in the United States and in other countries is a huge problem. People in the United States have a problem with having, for WWE as an example, pay for ESPN Plus, Peacock, Netflix, and normal cable just to watch all of the wrestling content. And then in other countries, a specific example is NWA Power that's on Roku, is some people are having trouble finding that even using a VPN to watch NWA Power. Do you think that is a problem, and how do you think that they could fix it realistically with like making the most money that they are making at this moment?
Yeah, I think that's 100% a problem. Like, because I think it kind of ties in with the advertising a bit, where I'm sure there's all these specific contracts and deals. Like WWE, it was on Peacock before that contract ended, so now moved the stuff to Netflix, and TNA has its own like TNA Plus, like all this stuff. Like to even watch it is kind of crazy. I think it's definitely a problem. And the ticket prices too, you mentioned, is also a problem. So I was at WrestleMania 41, and my tickets were kind of like way towards the top, and they were like 500 a piece, and like for not even that good of seats. And even with that, like I had to sit in like a virtual line online to buy them directly. If I would have tried to buy them after all like the initial ticket sales from a secondhand seller, it would have been like 2 3 times more. Like I I think in general with wrestling, like the way they're kind of, this is like for the whole wrestling business as a whole, not just any specific one. Like the way you got to watch all this stuff, they're kind of pricing out people, so to say. And like, let's just say like a normal person who's sort of a wrestling fan, they're not hardcore enough to watch everything. They want to watch something, they can't find it. They see, oh, I got to subscribe to this. I'm not even gonna bother. And then you know what that means? That means that they're not going to get that viewer, and like they're not going to increase their popularity. The wrestling business isn't going to go up, and you're only going to have. There's always going to be a hardcore group of people that pay for all this stuff, like me, or maybe even I don't know, probably you too, right? Like we'll still watch, right? But like the normal people, like aren't going to want to deal with all this. Like if you can't just like, that's why I think if it's gonna be on a streaming service, WWE probably has it best with Netflix, because like I probably a lot of people have Netflix, so like they see it on there, then they might watch it and then start watching it on a weekly basis. But when you have all these specific site like services, like you said, like Roku, TNA Plus, there's like a lot more. New Japan has one too, I think, right? That's still around. Like all these just to watch. Like some people aren't even gonna really bother, and then like all like the subscription services. So I mean, how do you is it worth like the money you're making from these contracts or payouts from these companies or whatever to kind of, I guess, not lose your fan base, but not gain or go up? I think it's a trade off. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like the advertising where probably the money is like, who cares? Like they get the money for like all these deals and stuff like that. They probably don't even really care.
Do you think if they stay at this rate going from uh site to site, do you think their fan base will stay stagnant, drop, or maybe eventually go up?
I think it will probably, I would say, stagnate to slight drop. This is just my opinion because, um, like I said, at the end of the day, there's always going to be people that watch it. And like you mentioned, one of the ones you mentioned was ESPN, and like there's a way around it, like using a VPN and stuff like that to get the Netflix stuff. And that's another thing, like with all these services, like there's certain like countries that have their own like stuff available depending on what country. That's why a lot of people use VPNs to like get past all this stuff. Is like you almost gotta like keep track of like, oh, okay, I watch this here. Oh wait, no, I need a VPN in this location to watch this, or I can pay this much money. Like it's just such a hassle. I think to go back to your question, I think overall for viewership, it's gonna cause it to stagnate, slightly go down in general across all companies. That's just my opinion. Because like it's not like back in the day where all this stuff was on like cable TV, which probably like what like I don't know percentage, but most like people would have cable, so that's probably why ratings were up. And I understand like comparing it to cable is kind of like an outdated take because like most people like cut the cord, so to say, and most people just kind of watch on demand stuff nowadays. But I think the point I'm trying to make here is like ease of accessibility to watch this stuff. And like when you got to keep track of like geolocations and all these different services and like, oh, guess what? Like Peacock in the US, they still have some of the archive SmackDowns, but if you want to watch Raw, it's on Netflix, but they don't have all the episodes. So you can't go back and watch that. But if you want to watch SmackDown in the US, you got to use a VPN on Netflix, or you got to go to get it's still on USA or whatever it is. Like it's just all this stuff. Like I think when you make it a hassle for a fan to watch, you're never gonna go up. That's kind of how I see it in terms of popularity and viewership. When I'm talking about going up, that's what I mean.
Do you have any last minute comments on the streaming sites with wrestling?
Uh, I mean, my last minute comments is I don't think any of this is gonna change because like I said, like a lot of people cut the cord nowadays, so it's a lot more like attractive, so to say, to have stuff on demand and streaming. It's just kind of the way things are right now, and like you could even connect that to like physical media. Like you won't see really DVD releases stuff like that anymore. It's just the times we're in. Like I don't see this changing personally.
The next question. Another huge problem everyone has is how expensive the wrestling companies have made it to come to events, to buy merchandise, to support the wrestlers, or to give to their kids, and to like stay in touch with the product with the streaming sites. Um, before we go into like specifics of like before we go into your comments, I would like to say to the fans or to anybody that the wrestling companies ticket prices are going up to like Super Bowl, like football prices, and merchandise. The championship belts went from like $399 to like $599. They've been like skyrocketing over these past couple years. Did you have any comments on why they would do this? How it could like um let like make people not want to watch the show anymore, and how WWE and all these other companies could fix that?
I think I think it's as simple as cheaper prices bringing more people. I think you know you try to go to a Raw show and it's ridiculous for a seat that's way in the back where you can't find anything. It's just not accessible. It's accessible for the people that have that kind of money, but you're losing your big your really big crowd that they had was just the average people. You could go to Raw match and get like right next to the barricade seats for like $100, $150 at most. And obviously that's, I mean, it changes based on inflation and everything. I understand that, but I think that you could still stick to those prices and bring in more money that way. I think that's another reason why people don't want to keep up, because it's like, why should I pay so much to basically watch people act, you know? And I think the belts and everything, it's like you want to get your family gifts, you want to get your friends gifts, obviously, and if you know that, then it's like you want to buy those things, but you can't because it costs so much, and it's just very ridiculous. I think if they just lower the prices, they'll bring in more people.
Another thing I would like to bring up with this problem that a lot of wrestling fans are having is that one of the people on the TKO board, the board that owns WWE, made a tweet saying that Vince McMahon was stupid because of him marketing to normal families instead of trying to get more profit. Do you have any comments on that? Have you heard of that heard that happened before, or is this news to you?
This is news to me. That is a crazy thing to say. I think. I mean, if there's one thing Vince McMahon did right, because I mean, the guy is awful. Truly awful. But he knew how to market it, and I think that to say it's stupid to advertise to the average people, that's ridiculous. That is completely ridiculous. You shouldn't. If you lose your fans, you lose your money. Without the fans, you don't have anything. I mean, like the pandemic kind of proved that a little bit, where there wasn't an audience, it didn't do as well. So it's like you need your fans. You can't just treat your fans poorly. You need your fans.
Um, Another thing that some I'm pretty sure some YouTubers were saying was that it kind of feels like they're marketing to like non-wrestling fans more than actual wrestling fans, and they're gonna eventually get to the point where people are just going to events who say that they went to events that they don't actually care about WWE. Do you think that might happen in the future? And if so, how do we make sure that doesn't happen in the future for the actual wrestling fans that watch the product, that want to stay engaged, that have loved it maybe their entire lives, maybe are just starting to love it?
I think it just goes back into the price thing. I think it's just the fact that it's so pricey that it's turning into a flex about it's turning into a financial flex more than like I saw these two people wrestle, you know. And I think it's a matter of booking too. I think it's almost like they kind of cater for those people that are just there to financially flex. I think that they need to put more of their main event people there and bring down the prices that way. It's more so of a like I pay. It was cool. I got to pay a cheaper price to see these main stars. I think that would shift the conversation.
A quick point on what you've been saying is like they haven't been booking top wrestlers. Um, I haven't written this down as a question, but some like wrestling YouTubers and like online and stuff, people are saying that it's kind of like what happened to The Rock, happened, like how he left the WWE and then went to Hollywood, messed up WWE around that time, that they're thinking that the philosophy of WWE at the moment is that they're trying to work with those people so they can go to Hollywood and still be there, so that they'll still keep their top stars, but they might just not have them as much. Do you think that's a good booking philosophy, or do you think they could do that in a good way so they don't lose their top stars, but also they have their top stars consistently?
I think I think that they should understand having to listen to your top stars and their needs to keep them, because if you don't, then they'll leave, obviously. But at the same time, I think there should be more. Like they should say more. Like you gotta show up more is what I think. I think that's how they should book it, and I think that it should come to a point where, like, if they want to be in a movie, then they can work with that. But it seems like it's so often that it's less. I'm working on another project. I can't make it to work. It seems more that it's just like I don't feel like it. I'm not showing up. That's what it comes across to for me, at least.
Um, to harpen on to that point, some key wrestlers that have um shown up and then left more often than not are people like Roman Reigns. Cody Rhodes did that for a little bit, but he's been more consistent out of the list of people who've left. AJ Lee made her return, left, made another return, then left. And then people like Brock Lesnar, and then even somebody like John Cena, who I know is really big in Hollywood, but when he was around for his farewell tour, he didn't show up as often as most people would hope. How do you think they could do to help like satisfy everyone's needs, but also make sure that they all show up more consistently in the near future?
I think I think if they just stop, they almost advertise it a little bit that these people are in Hollywood, you know, and I feel like they didn't do that as much in the past, to where it was like if a wrestler was in a movie, it just kind of depended on what it was. Like if it was a hit movie, then you know they'll advertise it. But I think that now it's like they advertise the fact that they're even in Hollywood, you know. And I think sometimes people show up and then they're not feeling it, so they just do a story. They do an injury storyline to where it's like, oh, they're injured, they won't be back for however so many days. When really it's just that they don't really care at the moment. I don't know. That's kind of what I think.
Um, Now time for question number 7. Another huge problem everyone has in the wrestling industry is how expensive wrestling companies have made it to come to events, to buy merch to support either a wrestler or to give to your kid, and then to stay in touch with the product through uh, through streaming platforms and different stuff like that. Do you think that is a problem, and do you think there could be a way to like fix that problem with making sure that the wrestling companies still get as much profit as they get through the specific means?
Yeah, so I 100% think this is a problem. More so specifically with WWE, because it kind of feels like they're pricing out their core fan base, and it kind of feels like the people that are going to be able to make these shows are people that don't necessarily love the product. They're kind of just people with a lot of money, or like influencers, or I know they always pay like celebrities to like, oh look, it's this guy from this Netflix show. He's here, but we probably paid him to be here and stuff like that. And I think that this is going to be a problem because, like, in the short term, they're going to see increase money, no doubt about it. I think it's pretty simple where if you charge more for stuff, you're gonna make more. But I think if you try to think about this long term, like you're gonna price out like families and your core audience and stuff like that, people that are like supporting your products. So like these people that show up to shows just because they have a lot of money aren't gonna be like supporting the product long term. So I think it's definitely a problem, specifically with ticket prices, more so to say, because like even like again, I think this is more so WWE specific. I think some of their shows do kind of better with or promotions do better than this than WWE, but like they cut down on like house shows, which those were fun and cheap. Like whenever the house shows were in my area, I would always go because the tickets were always cheap and they were to me they were more fun because it was kind of like a show for the house. You know, it was like them like just having fun. It wasn't televised. You know, people like longer matches and stuff like that. And like you'd always see like families and stuff that go there because they were cheap. They it didn't cost much to go to those, and I would always get pretty good tickets too. Like and but now with like these major shows, like it's like I said, WrestleMania I was at it was like $500 for literally like towards the top of the stadium. Like that's crazy. Like I'm not even kidding. Some of the lower seats I saw were reselling for like 13K or something like that. Like that's literally insane. Like I know those are resale prices and not necessarily representative of like the retail ticket price or whatever, but I just think it kind of like just shows how much like these ticket prices have increased. And I think short term it's gonna help them make money, but I think they probably just don't care to address this issue because it's kind of funny because Vince McMahon, despite all of his allegations and issues, had some positives. Like he really cared about some of this stuff. Like I don't think he would allow like tickets to get this high or like crazy advertisements all over the ring. Because I think he would draw the line here of like despite him as like this big bad guy character, I think deep down he really did care about the fans and like he's had certain lines he didn't want to cross. And I think now with not investors, the parent company owning them, I think a lot of this stuff might be above the like WWE people's heads. Like I think WrestleMania back in Vegas was a direct result from TKO because originally it was announced in New Orleans and apparently, allegedly, like TKO executives are like, no, just have it in Vegas again. We're gonna make a lot more money because it's just more money focused than like your core audience, which builds up your promotion. And I suppose the counter argument people make is the promotion's so big, like it's never gonna go down. Maybe it's not gonna go like up further, but it's not gonna go down. It's too big. It's kind of like with people draw a comparison. Well, I'm gonna draw a comparison to like Nintendo. Like there's a fact where like they could bleed money for like 10 plus years and be fine. So like at the end of the day, like I don't think you're really gonna see changes with this either, which kind of sucks.
Another thing along with this is there was a tweet by a TKO member, like one of the main guys, I'm pretty sure, said that that Vince McMahon practically said that Vince McMahon was stupid for catering to like specific families and not like trying to make the most money possible. Do you want to weigh in on that tweet?
Yeah, to me that comes across as a completely out of touch executive who doesn't care about the industry and just cares about money. Like I think I don't know if it was the same guy or another executive thought WrestlePalooza was a pure WB creation when that was actually an ECW creation. Like it's just people that are just so out of touch with the industry, and it's people in suits that just care about money. You also saw this towards the dying days of WCW with like these what was it, like AOL executives when they're merging with Time Warner, like trying to tell them how to write their show, and they don't even watch the show, and it's like, dude, like these out of touch executives. I get it; they're probably the people bankrolling this, but like maybe just don't talk about stuff you have no idea about, and maybe just kind of try to step back and not think about money every 5 seconds. Like I get it; it's a business; it's supposed to make money, but I think there's a certain threshold you cross where it becomes greed and avarice rather than like actually just trying to make a living here. And I think that statement specifically is completely out of touch and someone that literally does not care about the fans at all, just money.
Do you want to say anything else about like how expensive the industry has gotten?
Honestly, it just kind of makes me sad thinking about it because I know I've mentioned this like 4 times this interview, but I was at WrestleMania 41 and that cost me so much money. But like I've always wanted to go to a WrestleMania. That's why I did it. But like I don't really see myself going to too many more shows in the future. Like the Chamber I think is coming up near me, and I don't think I'm gonna go because I think the tickets are just insane. Like it's not even really worth it. Like I just sit at home and watch this. And with the house shows being cut down, like those, I honestly liked house shows more than like televised shows because I've been to way more of those actually, because they're a lot more fun and like I said, cheap and stuff like that. But like with those gone too, like it's literally pricing out people like me that have always been going to shows for a long time. So like it would take a lot to get me to go to a show now, whereas before I wouldn't hesitate and like, oh, it's in my area, I'm gonna go. But now I kind of think about it like, is this really worth it?
If you don't mind me asking, off of like the documentary and stuff, like sidebar from that, when was the first time you went to a like show, like a wrestling show?
So the first wrestling show I went to was a Raw in 2004. Um, yeah, Monday Night Raw in 2004. I don't know the specific date off the top of my head, but that was the first time I went. So between that time and now, anytime it was in my area, I was pretty much at the shows. I'm in kind of like I'm in Illinois, so let's just say like the Chicago area is kind of like my general area. Not too many pay-per-views, but like house shows definitely. SmackDown's Raws and WWE's ECW too was around too. I was at a lot of those, so yeah.
Okay. So, one of the last problems that people have is a good majority of people don't like how repetitive weekly wrestling shows have gotten. Some key examples is The Vision, closing Raw, like always with like a brawl with the faces, either after a tag team match or after like a 6-man one-on-one or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
The Judgment Day in about 2023 to 2024, starting off Raw with like a promo every week. Jeff Hardy with his substance abuse storylines, with how they kept bringing back his substance abuse problems when he feuded against Punk was the original one in 2010, and then he had it again in 2021 against Sheamus and then against Elias. And then the final example I would like to point out is some people say that MJF, a AEW wrestler, has had some rivalries that just like start off pretty good, and then AEW just cuts them. They think that's been not good creative and stuff. My question to you is, how could they fix their creative like backstage to make sure they don't have as many repetitive storylines, segments, and stuff like that, so they can give a better product to the fans?
I think it's just a matter of doing more with your creative writing team. I think instead of just saying, yeah, that works, why not go just get wacky? I think they need to just get wacky. There's not enough wackiness. They're taking stuff that they know has worked in the past that people have liked, and they're just basing entirely on that it'll work again. And that's the issue. There isn't any risk anymore. I think they were willing to take risks, whether it worked out or whether it didn't. Like regardless, they're too afraid that it won't work out. So now it's just turning into the same things over and over, and it's just becoming really boring. I think that's a simple fix.
Do you think for like to fix that with taking more risks, do you think they might need to fire some of the creative they have now, replace them with different people, or do you think that might be a fix to that, or do you think they could figure it out with the creative that the companies have now?
I mean, they might have to fire people, but I think it's definitely they could have a meeting or something of some sort and discuss it and discuss, figure that out. I think, yeah.
Well, we have one more question, number 10. A good majority of people don't like the repetitive, like weekly creative, with how like in like I think 2023 it was always the Judgment Day coming out doing a promo, how it's like Jeff Hardy always having to be in his like substance like storylines with like people like Elias and Sheamus. And then like how people say that I've heard online is that MJF had like start stories and then it would like immediately cut off before the story would actually be able to continue. And then the final one I would like to bring up is like Division always ending a Raw either being laid out or laying out somebody else. Do you think there's a way that wrestling companies could take like a better approach to fix said creative blunders? And if so, how do you think they could go about doing that?
Yeah, that one's kind of tough because you always have fans saying like, even like me probably would say like how I would write something, but whether or not some of this stuff would work, I don't know. And it's also kind of tough with wrestling because like you have to write stuff for a show every single week, and like you have all these variables of like maybe people getting injured and stuff like that. So I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but like some of the examples you said, like like in 2023 the Judgment Day always interrupting someone. I know there's like that meme online of like just someone doing a promo and turning and then the music plays. Like it's like, dude, like after a while it's kind of like you're just going back to the well so much. Like it's hard to come up with a solution, right? Because like I can say and spitball ideas, but I think just the idea is like maybe I should watch more of the Unreal show to see like the booking stuff. But I think the idea should be you have, which they kind of do this, but you need to have multiple people giving inputs here, and you need to like kind of decide like what the what direction you should go. Because to me, if you're doing the same thing every week, it just kind of feels like you're following the same idea someone else had like over and over again. And like even with stuff like Judgment Day, I feel like it's kind of run its course. Like we're still going with that stuff, and it's just like even watching Raw, it's like, oh, there's tension in the Judgment Day. There's tension in the Judgment Day. Is this person gonna leave, or are these people getting along? It's just over and over again. At a certain point, it's like, dude, can we just try something else? Like, and like some of the other ones, like nowadays, like the Vision, it's like kind of like you said, like a show just always ending. It's like, oh, the good guy gets jumped by the Vision. Oh, how is he gonna come back from this? And it's like, dude, can we just try to come up with something else, man? Like, I just again, like it's tough because like you're writing every week, but like when you're doing the same thing every week, it's kind of like I feel like I could do better, and I'm not even like I just sometimes just write stuff for fun or like stuff I wrote in college or whatever. Like it's not like I know like it's like a stereotype like the fan thinking he knows everything else better, but I mean sometimes you just gotta call stuff out, and like if you don't like something, you don't like something. Like I don't like this idea of like sometimes some of the wrestlers get offended and like they go at fans saying like you're not allowed to have an opinion because I'm a wrestler and you're not. I don't like that take because as a fan, like I can like and not like stuff. Sure, like a wrestler would have a probably a better perspective of like, why we did stuff, and probably their opinion means more. But I don't like this idea of like the fans can't say like this was written poorly and stuff like that. Um, I just really don't like that take because like I'm gonna have stuff I like and stuff I don't like too. Like imagine if I agree with some of these wrestlers where I can't have an opinion and you're like you asked me, you're like, what'd you think of Raw last week? And my response was this. I don't really know because as a fan, I don't know whether I enjoyed it or not because I don't really understand the process. Like if I said that to you, you'd be like, what? What are you talking about? You don't have an opinion on something like that? Or a lot of people compare it to like if you eat food and like you can't have an opinion unless you're a professional chef or whatever. That's honestly ridiculous. Like the anytime you consume any medium, there's always different perspectives here. There's people that made it, there's people that watch it. It's kind of like interpreting art, so to say, right? So I think if you have a majority of people saying something, it's probably most likely true. Like kind of like like we're saying like the Vision jumping people over and over again. It's like, can we try something else here? Or are we just gonna go back to the well here and like just do the same thing over and over again?
Well, do you have any last minute thoughts on that, or do you have any last minute thoughts on creative?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say like the inverse of that. There's people that specifically, I know like social media is probably like a hard a lot of these issues that think they know everything and they say this will work. It's 100% they should write it like this. And yeah, that's probably where some of these wrestlers are coming from. We're saying like stop, you don't really know as much as you know. And like there another thing here is like there's no correct answer to this. I can't say like the correct way to write this show would have been this, right? But I think there's a certain lines like when you have all these people saying like okay, I'm kind of tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. Like to me, like the top of the industry in wrestling was like 98 to 01, maybe even like 97 to 01, where you didn't know, like people like Stone Cold, what's he gonna do this week here? Like he's coming out like a beer truck one week, or he's like jumping over like security to attack Vince one week or whatever. Like I think when you have stuff like that, that's like because wrestling's like a creative like endeavor, right? So like when you have different stuff every week, that's how you engage the audience, right? So like if you keep doing the same thing, people are just gonna tune out, and like it's like if imagine like if you were just like eating one thing for the rest of your life, you're gonna get tired of it. Like it's just not gonna do it for you, regardless of how you initially reacted to it or liked it. You know.
Hmm. Okay, that is all the questions I have for you. Do you have any comments on anything else in the wrestling landscape of the 2020s from 2020 to 2025? Do you would like to bring up as like an issue that maybe we can like learn how to fix or improve upon, how to like improve to get better with said problem?
Um, I mean, I don't have anything really specific. I think you did a pretty good job of presenting like a good variety of stuff, and I think it's always important to compare how things were to how things were now. Because my philosophy on anything in life is always there's always room for improvement. So I think like if we like look back on our discussion here like 30 years later, there's probably going to be changes and stuff like that. Some might be better, some might be worse, but I think something like this is just like a constantly evolving like I guess art form, so to say. There's always ways to improve things here, and I think really probably the core of like issues is protecting people's health. I think is number one. Obviously, like number two would be like how do you draw the most fans, because that should be really the goal here, to become like a to be I don't know if popular is the right term, but we should really try to please the fans. Obviously, there's like a threshold of like if you listen to the fans too much and let them write the stuff for you, it's probably not a good thing. But also, you can't just ignore people and price them out with issues and stuff like that. I think there needs to be like a balance here. So I think again, I guess that's really a WWE specific problem with the money stuff. But I think I don't know, who knows what's gonna happen, but I don't know if they'd ever choose to address that, because at the end of the day, it's a business, and like everyone has their different perspective. Fans want good products, executives want more money, wrestlers probably want longer careers and like draw or becoming more popular and stuff like that, and like world championships, and becoming like a established character over with the fans, if you want to use that term or whatever. So there's all these different perspectives, but I think at the end of the day here, there's always room for improvement. So there's probably issues like we don't even really think about that eventually is probably going to be like addressed or brought up in the future.
Then I would like to say thank you for your time, and hopefully I'll work with you in the future. Thank you, YoungBoy11 on YouTube.
Yep, sounds good, man. I think there were some really good questions in there too, for sure. Where stuff I didn't really think about, so it was really fun to talk about this stuff again. Like just really like a fan's perspective, of how you or me feels. Like obviously people have their own takes, but I think it's important to always listen to everybody and then kind of go from there.
Thank you very much for having me. It was very nice. It was very fun. Uh, yeah, I guess that's it. It's good to talk. Good to talk about wrestling. I love wrestling. I'll see you.